World Remit helped me give you the best start in life. Even if I couldn't be there to see it. I know it wasn't easy comparing yourself to your friends. But the money I sent home meant that you could be right there alongside them today. I'm so proud to be your mother. Almost as proud as you must be now that you're starting an incredible new chapter.
Kumukuti-kutita, bumubusi-busila, ganyan ang indak ng mga bumbilya. Kikindat-kindat, kukurap-kurap, pinaglalaroan inyong mga mata. Hay! Pasko na naman, napakasarap ng pakiramdam. Lalo na't nakapagpadala na ako ng pamasko gamit ang Emiliano at Ana's No Frills promo. Makapag-video call nga, balita ko natanggap na nila yung padala ko.
Sa kabila ng patuloy na pandaigdigang krisis dulot ng COVID-19, hindi madadaig ng lungkot at pangungulila ang sayang dulot ng Kapaskuhan.
Halin na.
Kung kaya naman, nasa magkabilang panig man ng mundo ang layo sa isa't isa, ngayong Pasko, asahang ang pagmamahal nila'y ipapaabot sa iyo. Sa tulong ng Balikbayan Box promo ng Emiliano and Ana's No Frills.
Magandang balita mga kababayan, nagbabalik po ang Balikbayan Box promo ng Emiliano and Ana's No Frills.
Ang Emiliano Ana's No Frills sa pakikipagtulungan ng DHL ay magbibigay daan sa libre at maagap na pagpapadala ng balikbayan boxes sa Pilipinas.
Paano sumali? Mamili lamang sa No Frills ng nagkakalagang $150 upang makatanggap ng isang 20 pounds balikbayan box na may kasamang free express shipping sa Pilipinas by air sa tulong ng DHL. Ngayon, dahil ang balikbayan box mo ay ihahatid sa Pilipinas gamit ang air freight. Mas mabilis itong makakarating sa pamilya mo. Tandaan, single purchase na nagkakahalaga ng $150 Canadian ang kailangan upang sumali. Kaya, ano pang inaantay mo? Sugod na sa Emiliano and Ana's No Frills sa 245 Dixon Road, Etobicoke, Ontario. Promo period is from November 11 to 24, 2021 only. Kaya, magmadali!
Nagli pa rin ang Pasko.
I love Filipino music, Pinoy radio.
4 radio stations in one great app. MCBN Media Group app is a must-have app for all global Pinoys who love music. Free to download. Pinoy Radio, today's best Filipino music, plays the latest pop music with a mix of good old throwback OPM hits. Crosswave, the right hit music mix. America's Top 40 CHR Internet Radio slides back from the 90s and 2000s playlist, and today, Jeepney Pinoy Radio. Tara, sakay na! Let's rock and roll! The alternative way to listen mainstream and Pinoy indie music, OPM rock, and rap. Handpicked into one great playlist with live and acoustic versions, plus featured Tunog Kalye faves. MCBN Radio, 24/7 of the most listened American and British throwback hits from the 70s and 80s, with live broadcast feature and serving as the voice of the community. MCBN TV, live TV programs and mainstream blogs from great entertainment personalities and social media influencers. Download now. Thinking of selling your house or buying one in Toronto and surrounding areas? Our program will assist you in realizing your dream home in 60 minutes. Gizele Mirasol of Remax Rouge River Realty, with the help of satisfied clients, live personal testimonies, and how it changed their lives. That and more. Property Talks, Sundays on Pinoy Radio. PinoyRadio.com. Hosted by Gizele Mirasol, together with her remarkable guests who knows exactly how it's done. Property Talks. Your dream home awaits.
And good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Property Talks with Gizele Mirasol. Welcome, everyone, to all of our listeners in Toronto and surrounding areas, and of course, around the world. Welcome again to this is our year 4 finale. So, thank you, everyone, for tuning in and supporting us for the last 4 years. But because it's our final episode for the year, we have two special guests just for you. And today, would like to introduce to you two very special women and pretty much well respected and well known in the real estate community. First off, I would like to introduce to you, she is currently the immediate past president and 2020 to 2021 president of TRREB, which is a Toronto Real Estate Board. Please welcome Lisa Patel. Okay, we will get back to Lisa shortly. I think we are currently live, and definitely we'll make sure that we get her connection back on. In the meantime, I think we have Lisa. Hi, Lisa. How are you? You're on mute, Lisa. You're currently on mute. Okay, there you go. This is what happens when we have live, coverage, right? So, but we're so glad to have you here. Hi, Lisa. How are you doing today?
Kamasta? Excellent, and thank you. Very excited to be here with you. Looking forward to today's show.
Kumusta as well. Kumusta means hello in Filipino, right? How are you in Filipino? So, which is great. I really appreciate that. That's amazing, Lisa, how you actually remembered that. But we'll talk more later, and I'll introduce you more to the rest of our listeners. In the meantime, I'll introduce you to our second guest, who is actually the one of the owner broker of 7 real estate brokerages here in Toronto and Durham region. She's currently the East Director as well for the for TRREB, Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. Please welcome Jennifer Pierce. Hi, Jen. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, how are you guys?
I'm good. Thank you. Well, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to have both of you. And just, right now, my heart is full seeing women in the panel. Right. So this is definitely exciting. And especially that both of you are members of the Toronto Real Estate Board, which is definitely the biggest board here in Ontario, I believe. Right.
Well, actually, TRREB is the largest real estate board in the world.
Oh, it is. Wow. I didn't even know that.
Not only in Canada are we the largest board, but we're the largest board in the world. So that's another reason to be proud as realtors.
Perfect. That's excellent. I mean, right now I don't know, we can talk about how many realtors we have in general, right, in Toronto as well and surrounding areas. But in the meantime, let's get to know our guests. But before we get to know our guests, let's give our audiences an idea how the show is about today. We will definitely talk about women in real estate. We'll talk about how what is going on with the market, how is the market for 2021? Since right now we're pretty much at the end of November, and at the same time we'll talk about our prediction for 2022. Is there going to be a bubble? Right? I mean, we've talked about this, for the last couple of years, especially during COVID. But stay tuned. We'll talk about that. But let's get to know our guests first. And I think at this point, let's start off with Lisa. Hi again, Lisa.
Hi, Gizele.
Maybe if you can just introduce us and let us know how you got into real estate, and actually talk about yourself and let us know how you ended up being the president of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board.
It's really funny because when I look back, I laugh at how I got into this industry. I grew up with entrepreneur parents. We operated 18 different businesses done in Ontario, but they were always family-run businesses. So we would open them, establish them, sell them, keep going. In my own journey, I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know when or how. And it's funny because I was actually in the mortgage industry before I was in real estate, and I had left the institutions, opened up a small brokerage with a partner. And one day that partner looked at me because she was also had the real estate office, and she said, "You know what, Liz? You'd be better at real estate. Here's a check. Go get your license."
Wow.
And sure enough, she was right. And of course, I didn't continue with her. I went to another office as where I started my journey in the real estate world, and it's going to be year 13 coming up.
Wow.
So in 2022 will be 13 years, and I have no regrets. I love this industry. I love realtors, and the service that they do for communities all over is very important. We're part of people's lives and journeys. Now, TRREB is a whole other story. So in my journey, I always believe that you meet people for a reason, a season, a lifetime, and that certain people in our lives we come into, and I know that everybody listening to this can relate to somehow to this. Is that I always call them guides in disguise that are always that you
Hmm.
meet and taking you to that next chapter or journey that you're meant to go on. So for me, I've been volunteering since I was a kid in a lot of things in community related activities. And the one thing I was heavily involved with my own brokerage, and I was tired of it. I was time to do something bigger for the industry. And
Hmm.
so I put in an application to volunteer, and I got my first rejection letter, and no ego taken to this, but I was like, what is this? I'm like, I've got everybody in the province asking me to volunteer, and yet you're telling me no? What? So then, of course, I called up the president and I had a couple words with him. And then I sent him a letter because he sent me a letter. And then I had also went to the further extent, and I had emailed him and everything else. So I went all levels. I was like, I don't know who this guy thinks he is, but I'm going to let him know. And sure enough, that the president at the time was like, "Who is this girl?" "Oh, we're Facebook friends." "Okay, I know who this is." Okay, and that's the power of social media right there. And he ended up giving me a task force to get involved. And from watching me be a part of that task force, he looked at me and said, "Lisa, you need to run for the board." And this is going back 7 years ago. And I was
Wow.
just like, "Oh, I don't know about that." And because I was still, so busy in my own career and business. And so then I decided I went internally and said, "Yep, it feels right. I need to do this." And of course, I ran for the board, and I've had a long journey with TREB, and getting to the president spot was never an easy task. And it wasn't the first round to get there. It took the second round to do it. But I am so grateful because I've had a tremendous experience, and even being able to connect with you today, and Jennifer Pierce, who I love as well. But it's been an absolute interesting. I guess I would say mine is probably one of the more interesting years that we won't forget. I mean, probably Jen's dad's is interesting as well, but mine is just because we were in the pandemic. I mean, I got every lockdown there was in Ontario that was possible, and also celebrating. On November 29th, it will mark 101 years of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. So,
Wow.
so last year we got to celebrate 100 years together, and not the way that any of us ever would have expected. But for anybody listening, that's how powerful our board is. It's been existent here at home for over 100 years.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, and the fact that we are members of that board, and like you said, it's the biggest one in the world, right? So, and do we have numbers of how many members do we have currently? I know last time we were all close to almost 60,000 realtors.
So we are over 62,000. I don't know of the exact number, Jen. I don't know if you do. I know it's 62,000 some odd number. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Wow.
just keeps climbing every month. So it's hard to keep up, right? I was looking at stats and there's over, 1,750 brokerages. And
Wow.
yeah, 62,000 plus agents. So it's
Yeah.
a huge organization.
A couple of months ago, I did ask Jen for stats, and we were at just over, 58,000 plus, and now we're at 62
Yeah.
at this point. So which is really great. Like it just keeps growing and growing, and definitely I mean, I love the passion coming from Lisa as well, and I work with Jen, so definitely I know how it is, being in this real estate world, and it's not easy like as everybody portrays it to be. However, we love what we do, and when you love what what you do, definitely nothing is impossible, right? I do like your guides in disguise. I have those as well. When I first started in real estate, right? I mean, I started off as well with a team, and then they're probably my guides in disguise. I must say, still grateful for the people who introduced us to the business, and grateful for all the people we're about to meet as well, right, throughout our journey. Like today, like meeting, people like yourself, who's definitely, one of the leaders in this industry. So thank you, Lisa, for the intro. But let's get to Jennifer Pierce. Hi, Jen.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. I know Jennifer, everyone, is actually my manager and broker, and I do belong, in her brokerage. There's 7 brokerages, but maybe I can let Jen explain. This is actually a family-owned business as well that started, and how she continued on with the family business. Please go ahead, Jen.
Thank you. So just as you said, it's family business. So my parents, Dave and Dolores Pierce, they established the company in 1987. My dad was a licensed realtor for several years before that. So they opened the company in 1987. I have an older sister, so very close in age. So we grew up in this industry. We're both licensed full-time working in the business. I got my license in 2000. So I'm coming up just early in the new year to 22 years in the business.
Wow.
So yeah, so pretty young, sold very young, sold real estate full time for several years, and then moved into the management and then leadership after 7 or so years of selling real estate full time. So it was a nice fit having a young child and just being able to have a schedule that was a little bit more conducive to that. But throughout this process, we've grown the company to 7 offices, 170-ish agents. And as I said, I was looking at some of the stats, and at this point, we rank 30 out of 1,750 something brokerages. So
that's amazing.
That was exciting to see. So I sold real estate full time for quite a while. My father is also involved in organized real estate. He served on the board of directors for many, many years and was president of TRREB, I believe about 20 years ago. So in 2000 or 2001, right when I was starting in real estate. So I've had that introduction to organized real estate, and I've volunteered for the last 15 or so years. So as my son got older, graduated high school, it was a good time for me to, move a little bit deeper into that world. And I'm now sitting on the board of directors with Lisa. So it's been really exciting. In my first year, Lisa was president. It's been a great experience.
Wow, that's fantastic.
She's just being nice. She doesn't want to tell the truth. It's okay. I'm teasing.
We'll get to those details later, Lisa. Don't worry. We're just introducing Jen right now, but later on, you can maybe tell us more about her, because I don't know her. Aside from working with her at the office, right?
So where I'll fill you in with everything. I'm just kidding.
Fantastic. That's great. So you know what? Since we have Jen as well now, since we're talking about your dad as well in the real estate industry, maybe we can jump in and talk about how we're doing this year, right? So far since COVID hit, we thought that, there's going to be some changes in real estate, but it's been a very, very hot and strong year for 2021. So I know you have some stats as well to maybe show our audience. Why don't we start with that? So we can kindly have the first first graph of Toronto Real Estate Board. I'll let Jen explain that one. Go ahead, Jen.
Sure. So what I like to do usually when, with the office, we go through stats, I really like to give a big overall view of what's been happening in the market. So this goes back to January 2017. And we know that 2017 was a really, really busy year. Things seemed to peak in spring around April, and then it really started to drop. And, people were concerned that they'd overpaid, and how would they make up these losses in the market. So I find it really beneficial to look long-term so that people are very clear that, the market will go up and down a little bit, but overall, home ownership is a fantastic investment. And it's also a place you get to live and raise your family. So these graphs just kind of give you an overview of what the market looks like and what the sales are like. You can see the blue bars, that is the units sold. So that's how many homes are selling. And this graph here is just Toronto Real Estate Board overall. So all the different regions that are represented from east to west and north around the GTA. So you can see they tend to dip around the winter season and then pop back up in the spring. But you can see the red line there. That's the average price. And it has, you can see the first dip there is where it kind of dropped a little bit in 17. But it's just, steadily a little bit up and down. But it's really, really grown in this last year and a half. Over COVID, I think.
And Jen, just to add to that, 2017 was the year the government stepped into the industry as well.
Yes.
And added that whole rental change, which impacted the market a little bit. So that's when Jen says, there was a little dip, it was because we had a government intervention basically that year.
Yes. So it came in and kind of made everyone take a step back. The foreign buyer tax.
Buyers, yeah.
That came in too. So it's, but we know that in the last 18 months, COVID hit, we went into lockdown and everyone just kind of held their breath and no one knew what was going to happen. But for some reason, everyone decided they would buy a house. So the numbers have just been ridiculous the last 18 months. It's just, the sales have been enormous. I attributed some of it to people having that discretionary income. There was nowhere to go. So people had extra money. They felt a little bit more confident putting that money into real estate, maybe, buying a bigger home. A lot of people doing renovations. It's really, really difficult these days to get someone into your house, contractors and whatnot, and to buy supplies because everyone's doing this right now. So we've really benefited over the last year and a half of a very, very strong market. And also, and Lisa can speak more to this, supply and demand. Inventory is a huge issue across Canada, but definitely in the GTA. And it's really driving the prices up.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the main questions, and everybody throughout the year while I was doing the show was asking, why is the market so hot, right? Like, why is it? And then I've talked about supply and demand, definitely. And you are correct, Jen. Definitely right now, everybody's trying to renovate. I find that there are two types of buyers this year. There are the people who actually either, save a lot of money or did not. And the people who save money are the ones who start investing in real estate, right? And a lot of my clientele as well wanted more privacy, especially if they're working from home. They did not have enough space, so they decided to upgrade, right? So they made money in equity from their current home, and they started to upgrade. So even though when the market is hot, they also made money from their current homes as well. So Lisa, maybe, yes, if you can kindly just add to that too.
Absolutely. So I have a little different take. I'm going to make you guys all laugh right now. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So first off, let's go back a little. So I like the fact that Jen pointed out 2017 to 2021, because these have been impeccable years in real estate. And I'm going to quote one of my favorite economists, because he said this to TRREB members, and he said this at one of our AGMs. It was 4 years ago. He said, if you think that the prices of GTA market are high now, watch the next 10 years. And he's been right. And that is Benjamin Tal. Benjamin Tal has made it clear that the price of real estate in the GTA is going to continue to go up. There's also a course at Ryerson, if anyone ever wants to take it, on Toronto, that tells you in the history that's already been put into this book of Toronto and what's going to happen with Toronto. It exactly states that this was going to happen, that we were going to go into one of those societies where there may not be ever a middle class. It'll go into, it's either one or the other. And we're not there yet, so don't panic. But it's just interesting to see that, in history books, you can go take a course, learn about it, and see it for you unfold in front of you, right? Where we're seeing tight shift markets where we have people that I'll take a contributor. Like I look at like Jen's parents, for example, my own parents, they're not going to leave their home, or if they do, the choices are so limited. So you've got a lot of people that are going to stay where they are. And then you have this massive transition that we rely so heavily on immigration to come into this country, and that are all going to need housing, some sort of housing. So we've got a mix there. But my theory going back is, if we look at the year of 2020, I call 2020 and 2021 deja vus. And it's because we walked into 2020 saying, okay, let's see what happens with the marketplace. And it was hot from the beginning. We walked into 2020, January, sales were busy. February, we were starting to pick up. All of a sudden, news broke out that, this pandemic was starting. March, complete halt, and nothing was moving. We were in a dead zone where we were like, nobody knew what was going to happen, where we were going. Sales were taking place, but they were so seldom. And we've seen that in our numbers. And then as we moved and progressed through the months, all of a sudden, the summer months opened up a little bit, as so did the economy, and the government opened us up. So people felt a little more comfortable buying and selling, and we started to see transactions movement. And that was really going into June. And July, you got the new president right here. I'm just kidding. So Ian Grant and I made a joke about this. He always said that the year that the TRREB president comes in, they bring a different energy with them. And of course, shortly after, we went from record-breaking month, record-breaking month, record-breaking month, and it was just continuous. And then if we look at it, the only month that wasn't record-breaking in 2020 was November. We started to see a little bit of slowdown, and all of a sudden the condo market picked up in December. Then we walked into 2021, and it was just like a deja vu, like nothing ever changed, because all of a sudden sales were happening and things were moving again, and we were back to that continuation. And here we are. I mean, we're in November, about to finish the year with you, and we're still, this demand for real estate is hot. I mean, the numbers that Jen showed. Last month we witnessed 10,503 sales, and that is significant. And in a November marketplace, like October, November, that's significant. So that just tells you, that even though we went through the record-breaking months of demand, we still have a demand. And I can tell you, like, even in my own term as president, and speaking to leaders around the world, they all had the same situation happening in their respective countries. Like, we spoke to all of Europe, we spoke to Miami, Florida, you name it, we did. And they all witnessed the same thing. They were saying that the bricks and mortar has become a big demand around the world. And we also knew that, well, we're very fortunate. We live in a beautiful country that many people would like to also invest in. So that's going to be a bigger question as we get into this more in 2022, is what the government will do on that level of things. Because there is money that's wanting to come into this country, but we also still have a demand of our own that still has to be taken care of.
Absolutely. And most of our clientele this year are just Canadians, just us.
Right.
We haven't even considered, the immigrants that that's expected to come in, students as well, that's supposed to come in, and foreign buyers, right? So it's just us, the residents of Canada, who's actually purchasing homes at this point. So, and add that with the supply and demand plus the interest rate. So this is the all-time low that we've seen it, right? Like, I know you can talk, Jen, about this back in the 80s, how high the interest rates were.
Yeah, it's the rate to borrow funds at this point is so low. It's ridiculous. So we'll see with inflation, we're going to start to see the rates come up because they're going to try and pull back people borrowing so much money. But yeah, even back to immigration, our immigration really, really slowed down during COVID. It's just starting to pick back up. So, I always wonder, where are all these buyers coming from? If immigration is closed. So any kind of slowdown we have with people that, that were already living here and settled, they're just opening up. Immigration is going to be really busy next year. It's already starting to ramp up. I was looking at the stats, and they're saying that Ontario's population is expected to increase by 35.8% over the next 27 years. Oh, wow. So I'm dying to know where we're going to find the housing to accommodate all these people.
There's no space in Toronto anymore, right? So, I mean, everyone's buying outside of Toronto as well. So we're talking about, TRREB covers areas, maybe if you can tell me, so GTA and surrounding areas, right?
Absolutely. So we have 62,000 members, and so they are across the GTA. So if you think of the whole Golden Horseshoe, there's TRREB members everywhere.
Yeah.
But to Jen's point too, like, inflation is one aspect. And the thing is, the government's also got to be really careful about how they increase these rates, because our economy is not the strongest as we think it is. I mean, it's strong, It's probably one of the stronger ones out there too, when you compare it to the world. But they've got to do it on a gradual basis, because anything too strong, it's one of the reasons why we haven't already gone back to, the 4 and 5 and 6% interest rates. And it's just because if they go too hard too quickly, it will set us back. So, I mean, the good thing is that, we have a strong financing base that understands our marketplace. I think those are the lessons that are learned from like the 80s, the 90s. The early 90s were also hard times too. And then of course 2008 was a year that many of us will never forget too, which some people call it a bump. In comparison to a lot of places around the world. But it was a bump, and then it was just that jump, right? That was probably the electrifying start to all of this, because 11 months later, and the real estate market started taking off. We just weren't at that level of pricing that we are today. And so that's a whole other ballgame. I mean, this has to be a continuation, Gizele. Like, there's so many other topics we could talk about. It's like
absolutely, I totally understand. I remember that 2007, 2008 year, because 2008, that's when the U.S. economy started to go down. And even though their economy was down, our Canadian economy was doing great, and we were regulated here in Canada that even if we were buying homes, I mean, there wasn't a bubble that we expected, the way how the US was affected, right? And we kept strong. I mean, we stayed strong. I bought a house during that time, so I remember this clearly. I was paying 5.56%, so that was high. So for now to actually have a variable rate as, a 1.3, 1.5%, you can't go wrong. So that's why a lot of people are jumping in. But lots of discussion. Wow, lots of information from you ladies, but we need to take a quick break. And when we come back, let's talk more about women in real estate, and of course, what our prediction is for 2022. We'll be back here on Property Talks with Gizele Mirasol.
Bidang-bida ka pag nanalo ka ng bagong bahay sa pina-level up na TFC Win From Home Season 2. Just watch, answer, and win. Manalo monthly or win the pina-level up na grand prize, a brand new house and lot. Just watch TFC shows and movies every day. Choose TFC sa online form and answer the question of the day. Join us at TFC Win From Home Season 2.
Ang programang ito ay hatid sa inyo. Ang programang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng Action Honda, where car ownership is made easy. Located at 4334 Kingston Road, Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Come to Action Honda. Whether bibili ka o hindi, it's always a pleasure to talk sa kababayan. Mabuhay!
Great car deals in action. Your Filipino friends ready at your service. Test drive at Action Honda today.
Good news for Tagalog-speaking job hunters with good English. Ideal Talents Staffing Solutions is in need of general labor, assembly and packing, shipper, receiver, forklift operator, office plant cleaners, and warehouse cleaners. The said jobs is available in the following areas: Milton, Mississauga, Brampton, Bolton, Barrie, Vaughan, and Scarborough. Get paid weekly. No resume required, no experience required, and it will be just a quick telephone interview. Interested applicants may visit the website idealtalents.ca or call 647-467-5356 or 647-460-5508. Ideal Talents Staffing Solutions. Apply today. Work tomorrow.
Hi, it's me, Gia Rogers, ambassador of Mitsify, and today I'm going to show you the forms and functions of our 2021 collection bags. Come check it out.
I love how versatile it is. As someone who goes to university, I think it's great. I really like how it can turn into a backpack, and it's very big on the inside. My favorite part might be these holders down here for wallet, credit card. That's really helpful.
The collection also comes with 2 interchangeable straps, the classic strap and the indigenous.
I love the options for the pockets. I can put my phone in here, and then I have spots for my pens. This water bottle holder is really cool.
And as you can see, you can also change the shape of the bag.
and welcome back again to Property Talks with Gizele Mirasol. So we've had an amazing discussion with this lovely two ladies that I have here with me. Of course, we have LIZA Patel, who is the interim president and 2020 to 2021 president, Toronto Real Estate Board president, by the way, and as well Jennifer Pierce, who's the owner broker of 7 Remax Rouge River brokerages and the East director for TRREB as well. So we talked about pretty much how the market, how our market is doing since 2007 to the most current one right now, 2021. We briefly talked about inflation as well. And now we're back. But now let's quickly focus on women in real estate. So, Lisa, I'll let Lisa talk about this, right? Because definitely women, diversity, and inclusion, this is definitely an important aspect that the Toronto Real Estate Board has focused on. So, maybe if you can let us know how many women, how many realtors do we have here are females who is part of the board?
So ultimately, I mean, this is one of the most significant years. I think there's actually one other year that was significant because in 2021 now, going into 2022, we have 8 women on the board, which you don't usually see. Even in 2020, we had 5 in total. So it's great to see that from 2020 to 2021 that shift. There was one other year in history where I think there was 7 or 8 women. But in total, I will tell you that we've had 10 women presidents in 100 years of real estate. So, you know, we have made big strides. And this, of course, is very close to my heart because I hope that that many other continues. I'm going to you know, Jennifer Pierce to consider in the future, you know, as you carry on the journey of serving our members and TRREB. So that's something to keep in the back of your pocket. But yeah, of course, I will 100% stand behind any woman to get involved in leadership. And it's one of the reasons why we brought out this 2 task force last year, one being diversity and inclusion, and the second, of course, being women in real estate. So we know what the reality is. You know, what it was an industry once more dominated by more of the male counterpart. And today, I would say that our TRREB members in total, the stat is 40% are women. And which is still significant. If you think about, you know, the fact that we've only had 10 women presidents in 100 years, yet we're still with a population of 40%. Now, across Canada, so anybody that's listening, I think we are 144,000 realtors across the country. And so our Canadian stat is we are 53%. So we are growing. We are growing across the country. And I will say this on the organized real estate. So there is the real estate landscape itself, but on the organized real estate side, I will tell you that I'm really proud to see how many women have stepped up into leadership roles by serving other boards across Ontario, across Canada. So the dynamics are there. And in fact, having visited a real estate conference and connecting again with fellow Canadian colleagues that reside on boards, the focus is really pushing women leadership. And so we're going to see a lot more of this come out in the years ahead. But I will say I'm very proud of TRREB for when we had this discussion about implementing these policies and creating ambassadorship. So we want to make sure that we create ambassadors. So one of the things that people don't realize is your real estate agent is not only your real estate agent. They are everything, right, Gizele? Like,
that's right.
Jen, you know this. We wear a million different hats. Like one day we could be the ones like your babysitter, for example, of your children, or we are attending your weddings. And you know, we are helping through every scenario there is possible and trying to make your lives a lot easier, as well as taking you through that part of the process of that vision and dream and bringing it to life. And that dream is so well alive, and that's home ownership.
That's right.
And so when we think about those aspects, realtors are involved in communities in every element. Look at yourself, Gizele, right here. You know, and to all of the Filipino community, you know, just much love from Jennifer and I to all of you. and know that that this is what we do. You're involved in every aspect. You're helping educate, so you're ambassadors to communities, and that's the one thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we have ambassadors to communities that are not only representing the women population but diversity inclusion. And diversity inclusion, we're making sure it's part of our mandate in every element, with everything that we're doing. And I'm glad to see that it's at the forefront. We went through a lot of series of of years of like hush hush, and now our movement has spoken so lively. And I think that also has to do with a lot of the next generation too, is our movement is more speak up, speak out, right? And if this is the only way that we're also going to change our world for the better, is for all of us to align to that. So TRREB did do a survey recently. It's well as actually it has been in the process for many months, but in the realistic picture of where our membership is, we are still the most diverse board in all of Canada. And that still has, with any board across the country, there's always going to be challenges, and it's now working through that next awareness aspect. So the one thing that all of us can do together is really be aware of our circumstances, really be aware that we're being conscientious and open to all.
Absolutely. You know what? And just having the panel right now, this is breaking barriers. Okay. As you mentioned that you have about 10, 10 women on board, right? At the part of the board of directors. That's definitely something. Seeing you, Lisa, to be honest with you, as someone of woman of color, to be a president of the Toronto Real Estate Board, it actually definitely is a great example to all women out there. I mean, we came to Canada here.
So Gizele, now that you said that, so I'm gonna put this out there. So Jen and I are gonna wait for you to apply to be on the board one day. Number one, we're just putting this out there. Number two, I'm gonna wait for the day that you're also gonna run maybe for president, because I will tell you, I am the second woman of color. So
Wow.
I need others to continue on that stance too. And it's not, and let me make this really clear. It's not a color issue, but you know what? I would love to see more of us continue that legacy.
Absolutely. And you know what, that's a lot of pressure, but I will never say no to anything. I've been already everywhere doing MCing and doing a lot of stuff for the community. But like you said, we are passionate with what we do, and being this part of the show is to really provide information and education, right, with regards to real estate. Because at the end of the day, we do carry a lot of hats, right? We can be a psychiatrist sometimes, so we can, I do MC my clients' weddings as well, right, and their events. But definitely we're all here to assist. But Jen, in the brokerage, you've probably seen as well the amount of the growth of women realtors trying to get into real estate. Maybe you can talk about that briefly.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, thinking back when the company was started. I think just the real estate industry as a whole was generally, for the large part, male. And when our company started, it was my parents and mostly my father. He was the broker of record, and the landscape of the company was for the most part male. So time goes on, and now it's my sister and I that are generally running everything at the company. We're about 60% female at our company.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So I think that's partly because women, I guess, are they come to us, but also just the demographics in general of people entering the business. Lots more women are coming into the business. So it's really great to see. And
I'd like to point it out as well, like equal pay has always been an issue with a lot of industries, and in the real estate industry, definitely the commission that's being paid per transaction. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman; you're getting paid the same commission. So I think it's
there's stats that show that it's not.
Oh, it's not. Wow.
In a recent survey that we conducted we're working with Ryerson's Diversity Institute. And one of the biggest challenges, even in real estate and all industries, is that women, it's not equal pay.
Really?
So
Even in real estate?
Yeah. So we're diving more into this, but we are fully aware that there is a disconnect somewhere. So those are things that to look out forward to in the coming years. I mean, TRREB is going to continue, hopefully, this task force, and we will dive deeper into that. The Women in Real Estate Task Force are working on their next event, which is going to be in to celebrate Women's Day in March. And then we're going to have, fingers crossed, 2022, our largest trade show, and that is Realtor Quest. And we're working on something big for a panel discussion that will hopefully bring us all together.
Wow. Okay, that's great to know. I mean, that's actually enlightening that there's always definitely still a gap. There's still some disconnect there.
Yeah,
But,
you know what? The big gap is also it's in commercial real estate.
oh, okay.
The number of women that are in commercial real estate is still very, very low. So
That is
I think if you look at residential real estate, the numbers would seem a lot higher because it's just completely missing in that commercial space. So lots of opportunity there.
and that's why we have all of this programs as well, and having the diversity and inclusion group to be able to definitely, and the fact that we're even talking about it, it's such a big step, because
I
this
think
are
that's
things
the biggest step, is continuing the conversation. The fact that, it wasn't until Lisa's term that we even had a task force to address diversity and inclusion or women in real estate. So these are conversations that are happening all the time now. And I think that's important, and it has to continue.
That's amazing. Having seen this changes, as well, this just doesn't affect realtors. It also affects as well the industry as a whole. So that's always good to know. And Lisa, maybe you can talk about YPN, Youth Network, as well.
Yeah, and I will just add something too, a little bit more. I will say I also sit on the Canadian Real Estate Association. I've been volunteering for them, as well as I sit on the Ontario Real Estate Association. And with both, are working on initiatives for diversity and inclusion. So on the Canadian Real Estate Association, I know that they're going to be bringing out a lot more in the coming year. So I will say stay tuned, because they are doing some surveys themselves, not only on the leadership perspective, but also within the industry, and buyer perspective and seller perspectives as well. So those are stats that we don't have in this industry. So this is going to be a big steps ahead that is going to be part of the transformational process. And in terms of YPN, what can I say? You know what? So there's a couple of YPN. So TRREB has a YPN group. They are considered young at heart. And then Ontario Real Estate Association, who I have served for the last couple of years on their YPN. So their mandate is a little different, because it's anybody under 40. And but I will tell you that we've been doing on both sides. They've been doing a lot of masterminds, and this is also a very unique group. This is. So on TRREB side, this has been around for probably the last 7 or 8 years. And, there was moments where I think that they would put it through the process and saying, do we really need this? And we've really transformed YPN from what it was. And to really, the key has been a lot of learning and development and providing a lot of tools and guidance. And this is an active group that wants to be involved, that wants to help empower our industry and empower our world. And so they're going to be doing all kinds of neat initiatives to come out this year that include like providing other realtors with information on how to on how-tos guides, or even providing information on stats. There's another big one that's coming out on professionalism. That one's actually being done by the Canadian Real Estate Association. So that was going to be an interesting podcast, and there's going to be several of us on that one. So there's a lot more coming, but this is a demographic that also are saying, we want to empower others to be able to get into the real estate industry, and we want to create platforms that are going to help them. And I think that's, as I know we're about to dive into that piece of 2022, but that's a big piece that we also can't forget. We were talking about earlier about Canadians and getting and trying to get into the demand of real estate. But we also got to think of the other demographic, which is, the first time buyers. Where do they leave in such hot pricing markets like these? And where, the threshold to get in is a lot harder now because income levels have to be high, a certain amount. We still have the, the stress test, which isn't going to go away. And which means you're being still based on a higher interest rate. So these are the types of conversations that are coming up at YPN groups and how we acknowledge this. But these are also conversations that we also need like government to be hearing, right? A lot of times we have the government that are making a lot of decisions, but it's often, we need them to be part of our focus groups. Somehow, Gizele and Jennifer, we are going to do this. We are going to get them involved in our focus groups, and maybe they'll be tuning into your show today.
No, there you go. I hope so too, right? But it's great that we, as we talked about this, is all about this discussions, and I think this is a good time to encourage everyone to get involved. If you're a realtor or if you're thinking of becoming a realtor, there are definitely programs here that you can be involved in. For myself here, having this show or being part of PhilCrea, which is the Filipino Canadian Real Estate Association, get your voices heard. That's pretty much the main point of this, right? Because if you're just not doing anything and you're just sitting there, we need to take initiative because we want to see changes happening in our industry. This is definitely the time to start, right? So, and I know it's, a lot of information here, and believe it or not, we're almost close to 1 hour. Just a quick question here. We have a question here. Maybe one of you can answer this as well. Now because the market is really, really hot, extremely hot at the moment, how is this going to affect first-time home buyers? Because a lot of millennials right now, or even are asking for help and from their parents. The parents are helping. What's our prediction here, and how do you think? What changes can we do when it comes to that?
I think we're starting to see a lot of people they're staying home longer. They're saving money. It doesn't make sense to move out and start paying rent as a young person when they could be at home saving. So people are staying home longer. Parents are helping out. Parents are pulling out. I don't want to scare the parents, but we're hearing parents pulling out their own equity to give money to the children so that they can get into the market now. Because it just doesn't make sense to wait. Even to save, you can't keep up with the way the prices are going. So the sooner you can get in, the better. So we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing co-ownership. Millennials are very collaborative. So as far even with committees and working together, they really want to work together. They want to help each other. And we're seeing co-ownership where people are buying together, whether it's a couple friends or a couple of small families. They're getting in the market together because they have to find some way to get in the market. The sooner the better.
So I will add to that. So Jennifer's absolutely right. We did a podcast last year that's still available on TRREB's channels, social channels, and it was talking about generational wealth. And that is a big one out there. But to me personally, that's not enough. Like, I actually look at our industry and I'm a little political buff, so I should just put that out there. But I actually believe that we have to re-incentivize the first-time buyer program, because the way that pricing continues to go, and Jen actually said this earlier, that usually our industry is very leaps and bounds, right? The teeter-totter effect. We go through seller buyer markets, and we still have seen that, but just not to the degrees that we have seen in the past. And I don't think those types of degrees are going to be coming back anytime soon. And it's just because we're one of the best places to live in around the world. So ultimately, I think we need to re-incentivize two programs. Number one, New to Canada program, and number two, the first time buyer program. If the government itself is looking at affordable housing programs and how we're going to create this, because they know that there is a problem too, then we also need to look at the foundations of saying, in a marketplace, you can't just have the same repeated buyer, right? We end up getting stuck. It's a one big circle, right, of movement, because anytime a person buys a home, it helps the economy it helps 9 other industries. So we continuously provide a flow, and we needed that circle to keep orbiting. And the only way that's going to be done is that we've got to have first-time buyers into a marketplace. And the higher the threshold, then we're putting a restriction. Sure, there's generational wealth, but that's still not enough. So I think that those programs with CMHC, so not only on the government side, but also on the housing side, on the mortgage side, we need to bring everybody together and say, okay, like let's really look at this and look at the next 10 years. And how are we going to help Canadians get into the marketplace? We need one of those shifts to really take place.
Absolutely. A great input from both of you. And then now the question that everybody's asking, what is our prediction for the housing market prediction for 2022? I'll start off with Jen with this one.
Oh, I was going to say, Lisa, you go first. I want to hear what you have to say. Because we talk about this all the time at the office, and every year we just think it's got to slow down at some point. I keep waiting for this big surge of listings to come out just to kind of balance the market out a bit and let these buyers that are sitting there just fighting just to get into a property, that we'd finally have enough inventory so that they can all purchase. But it just doesn't seem to be happening. For every house that's listed, I mean, we're down 34% in listing inventory than a year ago today, but the sales aren't slowing down. It's mind-boggling. So I mean, I think for our spring market seems to be starting earlier the last few years. I think because the weather's been good. So we would have a shortage of listings at the end of the year, then come into January. And then by the time we got into February, we were in the spring market. It was, happening a lot sooner. And then we'd end up in a bit of a summer market. And we'd have that too. So I'm not sure what's going to happen this winter, but given the fact that we have no inventory right now, and I'm just thinking even in Durham region, which is where I generally am, I think we're going to start off pretty strong, and we're going to see a big bump in prices. We just can't help it. They just keep going up every month because there's nothing out there. But I do feel like 5 to 10% increase in price in the first half of the year. And then I think we're going to start to see it taper off at the end of next year. And we might end up with a more modest average price by the end of the year. It'll slow down. It won't keep jumping. We're, I think, 6.9% increase over last month in our average price. So we just can't sustain that. It's not reasonable. But I think we're going to see that taper off to the end of next year and maybe get into a more balanced market, which I think everyone would be happy about that.
Okay. And go ahead, Lisa.
Okay. So Jen touched on one of my theories, and this has been a theory of mine for years and years and years, and I've always stated this. So I normally tell buyers to start looking that November or December, because not as many people are out there. And in terms of, I've always stated this about the weather. If the weather in January is clear and good, people are ready to come out early. And listings already start moving from like mid to end of January. If the weather is, if we get a frosty one, like they're stating, then it will be a slower start to the marketplace. And traditionally, so people that are listening, traditionally the marketplace has always been known for the spring market, which would always be March, April, May, and then the fall market, which would always be September, October, were busy periods of time, and you'd be seeing that surge of buyers and sellers in the marketplace. And we've left those traditions for the last couple of years, and our marketplace, just Jen said, has started earlier. But there's a couple of factors that, so weather is one factor. Government intervention is another factor. So we know there's speculation out there right now that the government's going to intervene, and what that means, we don't know. So we know two things right now, that they are, they're looking at every type of resource to create housing right now. So the most recent survey has been asked by the city of Toronto, for example, is creating garden suites. We've already got they're already moving ahead with looking at density of buildings like the Danforth, and saying, okay, now we're going to rise them up, right? Because of limitations. We also know that they're also talking about laneway housing, all of those aspects. There was protocols for years put on basement apartments, and now you're going to see cities all over say, you know what? We can't be fighting this anymore. Where let's issue these permits because we need housing. Because in the other factor too is we have 400,000 immigrants coming into the country in 2022, and then we have another 400,000 coming in 2023 and 400,000 in 2024. So we have a lot of people still coming into the country. Yes, a lot of it will take up the rental market for now, but we're not thinking about the years ahead. So that is another challenge right there that is going to put this circle in a little bit of cautionary, because we may be back to this all over again. So those are factors, because even if we think about new construction in those buildings, they're already bought, and so those things are already bought. So we're still having a housing crisis, no matter how you look at it. Like, the supply chain is not enough. So we really got to see what the government does, if they open up either more land pockets, allow either take off some of this red tape and open up other ways for housing to be continued. And then the other factor is, like Jen said earlier, is interest rates. How will they touch them? If they touch them, you've got it. So, for example, if we go up 25 basis points, guess what? What that means is that it's just a little bit of a touch, as people pause for a second, and they're like, okay, then 25 means nothing. Okay, we'll just continue. So it just has a pause effect. It doesn't change what is already taking place. So there's that factor, or if they will step in any other ways, right? They're talking about the foreign buyer tax again, right? They're talking about heightening those restrictions even more.
The vacancy tax.
Vacancy tax,
yes,
yep.
and the vacancy tax. So there's so many things that are on the governmental factor that will affect it. But I think as we walk into January, we may see another deja vu. I don't know if January will be that month, but I think, as we get into February, March, I think that we're still expected to see a busy start to 2022 in some ways. As for the remainder of 2022, it will be based on, number one, when immigration begins, and government intervention. So those are two factors to consider. But I will say this, everybody that's tuned in, if you have an opportunity to get into the real estate market, my word advice, and I know that Jennifer and Gizele will say this too, is do it.
Yeah,
Get
in
ways
now.
to get into the marketplace now. This is the one way that you can create long-term wealth for your families.
Absolutely. I mean, I always tell my clients, like, we have clients when the market was really, really hot in 2017, and then all of a sudden, that we had some government intervention and changes. I mean, if we look at even the foreign buyers, at that time, really, it was less than 5% were actually foreign buyers in 2017. The rest are still really just residents of Canada as well. So definitely, with all that media frenzy, it definitely, took a hit in the real estate market by the time 2018 hit. But I've had clients who did buy high in 2017. They might not have earned equity, maybe a year and a half. But by the time 2019, 2020 hit, they pretty much made $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 on their home. So real estate is definitely, it's an investment. It's a long-term investment. But like, if Jen has been in the business for so long, whether you've been in the market for 10, 20, 30 years, you're still up no matter what. It's always been a win-win situation, right? So if you think that there might be a bubble, in our case, based on the stats that Jen and Lisa has, and based on our experience, everyone here, we are homeowners too, and we've definitely made money in equity in real estate. So
It's
if
long term.
Yes,
you really have to think about it that way, and it's not just investment; it's your home, right? It's where you're going to raise your family. That's a big part of it too. So it's a lot more than just, is the market going to go up 5% or is it going to drop 7%? Long term, you're going to win.
And the feeling of having your own home,
exactly,
that's a different feeling as well, right?
Exactly.
It's different.
And you also have the benefits, right? I mean,
Mhm.
depending on our lives change so much, right? I mean, whether it be jobs or income or any of those things, or health, right? Health is such a big important element. And the good thing about home ownership is that, or is the fact that, in situations like that, you do have the equity, or the fact that you do have the potential to sell. So it doesn't mean that you have to sell, and it means you could sell and buy again. It means that you could sell and maybe shift money into another type of investment, right? There's so many other alternatives. Or even if you're not even doing this for your own and you want to get into the marketplace and you're looking at new construction, another avenue, right? And giving you a couple of years to really save some extra money and then make that decision. Is this going to be for me, or am I going to become a landlord? And what does that entail? And that means, speaking to a real estate agent that's gonna give you that advice and let you know all the keys to either investing in real estate to home ownership.
Absolutely. So the best time to buy is now, right?
Always now. I think the last year and a half has shown us how important it is to have a home that you want to go home to.
Absolutely.
So.
And
And that's why Gizele, Jennifer's inviting us to her home too. Did she tell you?
I haven't been to her home. So there you go. Right. But I always see her in the office.
Thanks
But
for dinner, Jen. We look forward to it.
we'll bring the wine. How's that?
Okay.
There you
Sounds
go.
like a plan.
Always great. You know what? It's been wow. It's over an hour now in the show, and you're right. We might need to have a part two, and hopefully we'll have it live in the studio one day. Definitely we'll have. This is a great discussion, but maybe we'll get some requests of a part two. We'll start off by next year. But once again, thank you very much, Lisa and Jen, for your presence today. The information, your knowledge with regards to the real estate market, and your experience definitely has added a lot more input and hopefully broadened perspective for a lot of our audience and our listeners with regards to the real estate industry. So if anyone who's interested in real estate and you're not sure which brokerage to go to, talk to Jennifer Pierce, right? Remax Rouge River. Maybe Jen, if you can just give the number and where they can find you or a website, that would be great.
Sure. So I work out of our head office in Toronto, and the number is 416-286-3993. And that's where Gizele also works. She's more remote. The website is remaxrougeriver.com. So call me anytime. We're always available. Happy almost 10-year anniversary to Gizele.
Thank you.
We just had this conversation a little while ago. So it's been a great almost 10 years. So we're very excited about the next 10. Thank you.
Absolutely. If you guys need information how to become a realtor, I actually had a topic and invited 2 other realtors, a couple of weeks ago, and talk about, what their experience was to get into this industry. Right. So thank you so much, Jen. And of course, Lisa Patel of the Lisa Patel team, right? Where can everyone reach you?
Best thing, call, email, any of those things. So you can call me through my office, 416-443-0300, or send me an email, lisapatelteam@gmail.com. But Gizele, thank you. Jen, I love you. I'll can see you tomorrow soon. But Gizele, thank you from both of us. Much love. Thank you for having us. It's been a lot of fun, and we can't wait for the next one, hopefully in person, like you said, or maybe we'll just have to do something fun for everybody another time.
Absolutely. This has been great. I haven't met Lisa in person yet, but this is definitely such a great experience. So, definitely we'll think about how, in the future, maybe we can get involved with some.
We'll host it at your office. That's it.
There you
go.
That's even better. We already have a place.
Live. Remax Rouge, I'm coming.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you, but pleasure to have both of you. You both are an inspiration to women in general, and not just women, just realtors in general. Thank you for continuing what you do. You are leaders in this industry. Glad to be part of Remax Rouge as well, and to get to know Lisa, and especially having you in our show. So to all of our listeners out there, maraming salamat po. Thank you for tuning in, and that pretty much means thank you very much in Filipino. We always have this show normally every twice a month, every 2 weeks basically, here on MCBN PinoyRadio.com, and it's streaming on Facebook Live and other platforms. If you need to get a hold of me as well, soldbyg.com, soldbyg.com. Over 100 reviews with a 5 out of 5-star rating. Dito po at your service. Maraming salamat po sa inyo. And again, once again, thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you, Jen. We'll celebrate next time. See you in person. Once again, this is not season 4, year 4 of Property Talks with Gizele Mirasol. We're going to have a big celebration next year when we start off on our 5th year anniversary and my 10th year anniversary. So definitely 2 milestones that we have right now. To all of our guests this year, to all of my clientele. It's been a great year in real estate. Looking forward to assisting all of you as well in the coming year. And as what Jen and Lisa said, the best time to buy is actually now. Okay? Maraming salamat po. Have a great day, everyone. Once again, this is Gizele Mirasol of Property Talks. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. Bye!